Their response shows their priorities. The ATF is imposing more restrictions on our Second Amendment, and states are doubling down on grooming young children. Guys, this is Slamfire. Make sure you go to slamfiremedia.com. We have all our episodes posted on BitChute, YouTube, and Rumble. And if you want to follow us on social media, the platform that we are using is Gab, and you can follow us there on Slamfire or at Slamfire Media on Gab. Let's get into it, guys. I don't want to waste too much time. I kind of want to make it. I don't want to make a pattern of taking too much time and just kind of get right into it. So I have an outline laid out and everything like that. We're going to talk about a couple of things. So if you haven't noticed already, based on the little intro, we're going to be talking about some things that are going on with the ATF, and then I want to talk a little bit about the state of our culture war in terms of what they're doing in terms of grooming and things like that. We'll talk a little bit about Florida. So, getting straight into it, the ATF has become more emboldened, and they're coming after regular law-abiding citizens. This has been happening, but it's more prevalent now, I guess, since Biden's in office. States are holding families, moral values hostage in order to push a psychotic ideology to groom young children. The culture war is without a doubt in full swing, guys. Now is the time to hunker down and prepare for the mental, spiritual, and possible physical battles that are in store for us. Because remember, we're barely in April. We're barely in April, and as we get closer to November, expect things to ramp up. With that being said, it's time to double down, even triple down on our self-reliance. We've kind of been going on this message of becoming self-reliant, stop relying on people on things that you need, become self-sustainable as much as possible. And we're kind of just going to build off of that same theme with this video, or with this little episode, I guess. So do what you need to do now so that you're able to outlast all these mindless people who have made the personal decision to rely on others in order to not only survive but to reassure them that everything is fine. If the apocalypse happened tomorrow, I guarantee there would still be people out there like going to work and going about their daily routine because they're just completely oblivious to what's going on. This was a discussion that I had with a buddy of mine, that when the whole war in Ukraine started and it was still fairly fresh and it was just in the beginning stages, there were people in videos that we would watch, like you could watch live feeds on YouTube. There'd be people like riding around their bicycles and driving around in their cars and like just going about like their everyday life, like everything is fine. It's like, what's going on? Why are you riding around in your bicycle? Why are you like, this is crazy. Like, why aren't you at home? There's a war going on. So there would definitely be people that would do that here. I feel in the United States, that if say there would be a war breaking out, say Canada invaded us or Mexico invaded us or something like that or whatever, there would still be people going about their daily life like, oh, I'm going to go to Starbucks, I'm going to go to wherever, keep my daily routine going, because they're just so oblivious to what's going on. So our first point here, going on to the ATF rulings on 80% lowers. So I will explain, guys. I know this sounds like, what the hell are you talking about, these letters and numbers? This is not math or something. I can't do this. Like, I'll explain. So the ATF has released a ruling that 80% lowers and their kits that are used to make firearms are now going to be considered firearms, which will require them to have serial numbers. So let me pull this up just so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. This is from the ATF. You can't see it right here. It's kind of hidden right here, but this is from the ATF.gov website. If you guys don't know what the ATF is, it's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives. They're in charge of regulating all this stuff. So this ruling, definition of frame or receiver and identification of firearms. Just to give you a summary, on April 11th, Attorney General signed ATF Final Rule, definition of frame or receiver and identification of firearms, amending ATF's regulation by removing and replacing the regulatory definitions of firearm frame or receiver and frame or receiver, using examples on diagrams clearly conveying what a frame or receiving is, amending the definitions of firearm and gunsmith, providing definitions of terms such as complete weapon, complete muffler or silencer device, privately made firearm, and amending regulations on marking and record keeping. So I know it sounds like a lot, but right here, they're taking away American citizens' rights to own their firearms. Basically, I mean, kind of going, kind of going a little bit, hyperbolic, but they're making it very, very difficult. So a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually make your own firearm. People do it all the time. They do it as hobbies. It's the only thing that you start running into problems is you cannot sell it. If you're keeping it for personal use, it's fine. But when you go to sell it, you need to get it registered. So that's when the ATF comes in. But for personal use, it's totally legal. So for those of us who have no idea what I'm talking about, there are rules that you have to follow in regards to firearms that are set by the ATF, which is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives. You can't just buy whatever parts you want and put a gun together however you see fit, right? There's rules, there's regulations that have to be followed unless you want to become a felon, right? This is why I think that there's a lot of people who are hesitant into getting into guns, like getting into the whole gun culture thing and everything like that, because it can be scary. Knowing that if you make a mistake, it could possibly turn you into a felon or lose your rights entirely, it's a scary idea. So now I don't want to go off topic too much, but just to give you an example, the easiest way I can explain why this is an issue with all these rules and everything like that is the problem with like AR. We all heard AR-15, so you have AR rifles and you have AR pistols. So in basic terms, a rifles have a barrel that is 16 inches or more. Okay. With that being said, then what is a pistol? So, in basic terms, a pistol is a firearm that is designed to be used with one hand, right? Like a handgun, right? It's a pistol. You hold it with one hand and you can shoot it, right? It's designed to be designed to be used with one hand. So, how would you turn a rifle into a pistol? So, that statement itself is not correct. You cannot turn a rifle into a pistol. So, I don't want to get into the minutia of it, but according to the ATF, you cannot turn a rifle into a pistol, but you can turn a pistol into a rifle and back into a pistol, but so long as the firearm originated as a pistol, right? This is confusing, right? So that's how the ATF works. That's how the law. It's not really the law, but that's how the regulation is with the ATF. So it's confusing, right? So say you want to make an AR, right? But you don't want a big old like 16 or 20-inch barrel, right? That's usually the standard for like a rifle. You want something a little bit smaller, right? No problem. You can do that. So you buy yourself a 10-inch barrel, which they sell. You can have it mailed to your house. And you buy a bolt carrying group. You buy everything that you need so that it completes the entire upper part of the rifle, right? You buy all that. You can get that sent to your house because it's not a firearm. It's just a barrel, probably a heat guard, a bolt carrier group. Those are all the little inner workings that push the bullet into the chamber so that you can fire it, but it's still, there's no trigger, there's nothing like that. So you can have that all mailed to your house. So you go and you get a lower receiver, right? The lower receiver, it has the stock, it has the buffer tube, it has the pistol grip, it has the trigger, it has the safety. That you need to send to your FFL, right? You need to get it sent to a gun dealer, a person that has an FFL, which is a Federal Firearms License. I think that's what it stands for. But you go through the proper channels, you get it done all legally and everything like that. So you get all of you get everything mailed in, right? You go to your dealer and you pick up your firearm, which is your lower part of your rifle. Okay? So you go to assemble your AR pistol and you notice that you have this buffer tube. It's basically a tube that makes it really difficult to properly hold your pistol, right? Because it's kind of in the way. It doesn't really do anything, right? It's just kind of in the way. So you think, you know what? I need a stock so I can get better control with more points of contact, right? I want my body touching more of this pistol so that I can have more control, right? Well, your stock comes in and you put it on your pistol. Guess what? You just committed a felony, and if convicted, you're subject to a possible $10,000 fine and up to 10 years in prison. Yeah. But if you pay a tax stamp and you register your pistol as an SBR with the ATF, so an SBR is basically a short-barreled rifle. If you register it with them, then you can treat your pistol like a rifle. You can put your stock on there. You can put a grip on there. I mean, there's other stipulations that you would need to consider, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. Just want to just going back to the whole point of this. That what is the ATF? Like, what gives them the ability to make all of these regulations and to put all of these stipulations and things like that that can turn a regular law-abiding citizen into a felon? What is the ATF? Are they a part of Congress? No, they're not. They're not a part of Congress. They're completely separate from Congress. They make their own regulations that are directly infringing on Second Amendment rights, and they don't have any types of checks and balances. They're free to make these regulations and these rules without any type of oversight from Congress or the Supreme Court. The ATF right now, especially with this administration, is very much against the American people. So what does this have to do with the 80% lower? So going back to the 80% lower. So an 80% lower is basically a piece of aluminum that is not capable of firing a projectile. It's just kind of like an outline of a lower receiver. It requires you to do some drilling and some milling. Like you need to have you need to have hardware in order to do this. You need to have power tools in order to do this. You need. I know that there's some people that have done it with like hand tools, but a lot of people recommend that in order for these things to do it correctly, you need to have like a drill press at the very least. So not anybody can just do this. It takes practice. It takes that's why people do this as like a hobby. It's something that they do on their own. They're not looking to sell this to other people. It takes a little bit of skill. You need to know what you're doing in order to make use of this 80% lower. So it requires you to do some drilling and milling in order to form it into an actual functional firearm. This is where this infamous ghost gun idea comes from. The ATF thinks that law-abiding citizens shouldn't be able to make their own firearms. So they create this scary gun, right? This ghost gun. The narrative that they use is criminals use these ghost guns, right? So they can't be tracked. It makes it easier for them to evade arrest, right? So again, nothing is going to stop criminals. We've talked about this, right? Just kind of hammering this as much as possible. Nothing is going to stop criminals from getting what they need to do, from getting what they need in order to commit crimes, right? Anything can be turned into a weapon, right? A deadly weapon, a bat, a knife, a car, right? How is this restricting 80% lowers? How is restricting people from making their own firearms going to stop criminals? Criminals don't follow laws. Only law-abiding citizens, which are usually, it's pretty much everyday regular citizens. They're the ones that are going to be following these regulations. They're the ones who are going to be going through and following these laws. What is stopping a criminal from scratching off a serial number? So say a criminal goes and steals a firearm from someone's house or through a burglary, or they break into a pawn shop or whatever. What is stopping them from scratching off that serial number? That's really the only difference between a regular firearm and a quote-unquote gun, a ghost gun. I was going to say gun ghost, but a ghost gun. That's the only difference. Because when you have an 80% lower and you build it yourself and you do all the milling and you make your own firearm, it doesn't need to be registered. If you're going to sell it, then you have to get it serialized and, go through all that mess, because that they tack that in through interstate commerce. So anyway, I don't want to go off into a tangent too much, but this whole ghost gun thing, this ATF, they're restricting our rights. They're restricting our Second Amendment rights throughout any sort of oversight, throughout any checks and balances, without even going through Congress. There are some white pills to this. There are little glimmers of hope to this whole thing. I believe it was Ted Cruz and another senator are proposing things to kind of limit what the ATF can do. But what has me scared is that this is only like a publicity type of thing just for up to November, because let's see what happens in November. If things go good in November and we're able to flip the House and the Senate, we can do a little bit more in terms of that, but we have a little bit more fighting power. But at the end of the day, again, the ATF doesn't answer to Congress. It doesn't answer to the House of Representatives. It doesn't answer to the Senate. The ATF, if the ATF and the presidency, what's the special word for? You have Congress, you have the Supreme Court, and you have what's that third one? The three main branches of government. The executive. So if the executive branch and the ATF are in cahoots, which they are, they can strike down any laws that go against the ATF. So say November comes up, right? November comes up and the Republicans take over the House, they take over the Senate, and they have this super majority, and they can kind of push law. It's easier for them to push laws. At the end of the day, the president can come back and just veto all that stuff. The president doesn't have to sign it, right? So if they make a law that says the ATF is not allowed to make any regulations concerning the Second Amendment or whatever, however the wording you want it to be, the president can just not decide to sign that law, so it'll never become law. So they still have free reins, right? Because they're not under the jurisdiction of Congress. So moving on from that, let's look at the recent shooting in New York. So there was a shooting in New York, right, this past week. So where are we over here? Just so that you guys have an idea. This is on Timcast, timcast.com. So New York subway shooting suspect. They arrested this guy right here. This guy's a piece of trash. I'm not going to say his name. But there was a shooting in New York where this guy, he's just a complete coward. He threw a smoke bomb in a train and pretty much just shot up the train that was filled with, just defenseless civilians in a New York subway. This guy's just a complete piece of trash. Like, he knew that no one would be there. Anyone who was there, he knew they wouldn't be able to fight back. Like, I believe that he planned this out so that he knew that he would be the only one with a gun. He's too much of a coward to try and target people who had the potential to fight back. But I don't want to go too much into this. I don't want to talk too much about this guy anyway. But the story alone to me is crazy. Like, this story to me is crazy in the sense that it took so long to actually find this guy. I actually think that I actually believe that when I was reading some other articles that it was actually Reddit or 4chan or one of these sites who they actually found the suspect like way before police. Surprisingly, though, there were no cameras in operation in the area where this happened, which to me is insane. I've never been to New York, but I would be willing to bet, I would put money down, that there would be like tens, if not hundreds of cameras in a New York City subway, right? I would figure. On top of that, there are outlets who I'm thinking, like, they withheld as much info as they could because of the fact that this guy, he's black, right? We saw in his like mugshot and all this stuff, he's black. And come to think of it, I haven't heard too much coverage of this incident on mainstream media. Maybe they're waiting for like the full story to come out, But right now, there's plenty to start reporting on now. It's almost like they're limiting the information so they can spin and control the narrative as much as possible, right? This guy was able to shoot off 30 rounds before his gun jammed. Thank goodness he was a horrible shot because as far as I know, no one has been killed. It was reported that some people were struck by gunfire, but none of their injuries were life-threatening or anything like that. So that, as far as I know, no one has been killed. So some of these articles are using the idea that this guy's like magazine jammed up and that's what actually saved a lot of lives, but it's so obvious that they're trying to use like this supposed magazine issue to push the idea of why we need restrictions on magazine capacity, right? We heard Biden come out that he wants to limit high capacity magazines and all this garbage. So these articles, they're trying to push the idea that only if he had a magazine that could carry 10 rounds or less, then he would not have been able to get as many shots off. So let's go back to so that we don't forget. Criminals don't follow laws. Like, who cares if you restrict magazines to 10 rounds? Criminals are not going to follow those restrictions. They're criminals. Why not address the fact that no one was able to shoot back and defend themselves? Huh? Like, is it possible to entertain the idea that the city is intentionally wanting its citizens defenseless so that they have to rely on police and other city officials to provide like their basic freedoms of self-defense, right? Because the city makes laws, right? The city is the one that creates these laws, these restrictions. These laws in turn put their citizens in dangerous situations because they don't have the ability to fight back. I'm starting to get to the point where, like, in my mind, mentality-wise, like, I'm starting to think like They should just outright take away everything from these people who vote for this stuff. Like they should just take everything away from these citizens. Like all these people in these big rotten cities like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, even Austin, because you know us being from Texas, like even Austin. These people don't deserve anything. Like if someone is willing to give away their freedoms in exchange for a little bit of safety, then they don't deserve either. Right? Famous guy said that. I don't remember who the guys, but they were some smart people who said that. Right? Credit to them. But getting back to the topic of how things are ramping up, right, in this culture war, I want to kind of keep us on track. I don't want to go off too much into tangents, but back to the main topic. So let's talk about the culture war from a different front. This whole child grooming thing, it's kind of getting out of hand, and I think it started with the left's retaliation of the Florida's Parental Rights Acts, right? When Ron DeSantis came out with that Parental Rights Acts in education for Florida, like it basically just prohibits classrooms discussion about sexual orientation and gender identity in certain grade levels, right? I want to say it's through like kinder and third grade or something like that. You know, I think that this set the leftists, like all these leftist crazy people, it set them off and they had like no idea what to do. It just caught them off guard. So like Disney started promoting all this transgender garbage, and even like another state doubled down and made it so that schools had to teach about sexual orientation and gender. There's a story. Do I have it here? Yes, I do, right here, so you guys can see it. So Maryland teachers instructed to provide gender identity lessons to kindergarten, just from Rebel News. You guys should be able to see it right here. So training from the state's education department emphasizes teachers are not required to inform parents if any child expresses the desire to undergo gender transition. Insane. Like, to me, this is crazy. So they're basically requiring pre-K and kinder students to learn about gender identity and expression. To me, this is crazy. Like, pull your kids out. Pull your kids out, people. If you live in Maryland, pull your kids out of schools. That's just crazy. If this is what they're teaching to preschoolers, imagine what they're teaching to older students. Like, just pull your kids out. Like, this is a great example of the idea of how these people, they can't reproduce, right? These transgender, lesbian, queer, gay, like, they can't reproduce, right? Two men cannot come together and form a baby. Two women cannot come together and form a baby. It doesn't matter in your mind if you're a man and you think you're a woman. Just the simple idea, like, oh, I think I'm a woman, I feel like a girl, that doesn't mean you can get pregnant. Okay, like these people, they can't reproduce. The idea goes like that, since they can't reproduce, how do they increase their numbers? What do? They recruit. They recruit these people. How do you recruit them? You get them early when they have no idea what's going on. It's scary knowing that when you send your kids to school. It should be scary. I'm scared of it. I don't even have kids. I would be terrified knowing that I'm sending I'm sending my kid to school thinking that they're going to learn how to read and write, do math, right? Do like the basic common things that we're supposed to learn in school, right? Things that are going to help us understand the world around us a little bit better. But instead, they're turning these kids into confused NPCs, right? All I can say is homeschool your kids. This is something that I've been advocating, and I'll continue to advocate as much as I can. Like, if you can do it, homeschool your kids. Like, 'cause this is how they're trying to hold our moral values hostage. You can come to our schools, but you have to learn about things that are going to destroy your morality, right? In the case of Disney, right? You can watch our movies, you can have all this entertainment that we have, but we're going to flood it with sick content that's going to demoralize and destroy your American family, or the American family. It's crazy, guys. Like, trying to wind down. I know this is a lot of stuff. It's kind of sickening, but this is a time like we make our stand. I know a lot of this information, it's like a massive black pill. Like, there's no hope in sight. But if you think about what we have to do in order to win, all we really have to do is raise our families, right? We need to create families. We need to instill our children and neighbors with a sense of self-reliance, and we keep this conversation going, right? Don't let them do this in the darkness. Expose it as much as possible, right? This destructive cancer that's infesting our schools, our communities, it's basically consuming itself, right? Like, every little thing triggers these people. I remember it was I don't know if it was a Crowder video, but they had a thing where they try to have a meeting. These crazy people from like Reddit or something, they try to have a meeting, a conference or something, and every other word that they said offended somebody. Like, oh, you can't say he or she, you can't say they, because there's someone that might not identify as a person. They might identify as a celestial being, and like every other thing was triggering these people. Like, how do you get anything done? These ridiculous like cults or whatever, it's basically consuming itself. The average person doesn't care about all these like trans issue garbage stuff. They care about their families, right? They care about their wallet and they care about their freedoms. When you start messing with those things, I think that's when people make their choice on where they spend their money, right? Where they cast their vote. These people want to destroy families. They want to destroy the American family, and they want to take away our ability to fight back by restricting our Second Amendment as much as possible. I'm not saying we need to go out into the streets with our guns and this and that, do anything like that, but they're trying to limit us as much as possible. They're trying to make us as defenseless as possible. Without weapons, right, we can't defend ourselves. So if the government or some crazy state-run army or whatever want to come and basically take everything away from us, they want to make it as easy as possible. Look at what happened in Australia with the lockdowns. People couldn't do anything because they were literally defenseless. So without weapons, we can't defend ourselves, right? Without a strong family, we're all alone pretty much, right? With nothing but big government to take care of us. They're trying to take those things away from us to get an upper hand in this culture war. We need to start speaking with our votes, but understand that it's going to get pretty rough. I think the closer we get to elections, it's going to get crazy. There is a silver lining, though. We're prepared. We know that we need to be prepared, and we're capable of doing that. And I think that that makes us dangerous. Because these people, they will not listen to reason. And this is something interesting that I've just started to pay attention to. It's always been around, but I've never actually focused on it and tried to use that as a sense of understanding as to why these people are the way they are. There's people out there, and a lot of them are usually on the left side of thinking, that they literally cannot listen to logic. You cannot reason with them on anything. Even if you try to find common ground, they will fight it tooth and nail. There's no way for them to listen to any type of reason, right? But us, if you guys are listening to Slamfire, I consider you very much like the way that I think. If you're listening to Slamfire and you are and you don't think the way that the ideas that I'm coming up with and the things that I'm saying, if you don't agree with them, I give my hat off to I give you props for going outside the box and willing to listen to something that goes completely against your train of thought. That is commendable. Because most people, we've talked about this before, right? In order for most people are not going to change, right? They're not going to change their way of thinking. They're not going to change the way they do things unless they're willing to make that change first, right? They have to be willing to have their mind changed. They have to be willing to listen to another point of view, listen to someone's opinions, right? And that's something that really discerns like this whole left and right thing. A lot of people on the right, they're willing to listen to someone else's idea. That's why you see a lot of these debates and a lot of these podcasts and people have interviews and stuff like that. A lot of this stuff is an echo chamber because it's very hard to get someone from the left side to go onto like a conservative type of talk show, radio show, whatever you want to call it, and defend themselves because they don't handle criticism very well, right? They just shut it out completely. And there's people on the right side that are the same way. They don't want to have anything to do with the left side. They just want to stay in their little echo chamber, right? But what makes us dangerous is that we're capable of making that transition. We're capable of listening to the other side's opinion and determining for ourselves whether this is something we agree with or disagree with, right? We're not afraid to make that decision because we have the confidence of our morale. We have the confidence backed by our moralities, right? If it doesn't make sense logically, if it doesn't pass our logical test, if this goes against our morality, then it's simple. I completely ignore it and I don't give it any attention, right? That's how I vote. That's how I vote for these ideas, by giving it attention. Whether you're giving it attention, you're giving it money, you're giving it clicks, you're giving it any sort of sense of notoriety. That's how you can cancel someone's vote. You can vote against. I don't want to say cancel someone's vote. That doesn't make sense. You want that you vote against for something, right? Not giving it attention. And you can give attention different ways, right? You vote for it, right? You go out to elections are coming up in November. You literally go out and vote for it. You pay for it, right? You give money to something. That's giving something or someone a sense of reassurability, like, hey, what I'm doing works. This is positive. Uh, what's that called? Positive feedback, right? I'm doing something, and they're giving me money. Hey, I must be doing something right, right? But if someone comes out with an idea and be like, yeah, I'm not even going to give you my time. No one's even listening to me. No, my idea must not be good, right? That's what I believe sets us apart. So this video, guys, I know is real short. I didn't want to go too much into this because there are a lot of topics on here that make it easy for me to go into a tangent, and I really had to fight when I was writing this outline. There were a lot of little tangents that I wanted to type in and be like, oh, I can talk about this. I can lead into this. Oh, that leads me into thinking about this. Like, there's just so much things, but I don't want to overwhelm you guys with just so much information. There are more things coming out that I want to talk about, and I want to save that for a later time. This is kind of a lot of info to digest, a lot of like black pilling here. But remember, there is that silver lining. We're prepared and we're capable for this. We've seen this done before, and we're able to deal with it, right? We've done this before. So again, guys, this is Slamfire. Make sure you go to slamfiremedia.com. We have everything uploaded there. Not uploaded, but we have everything linked there to all our different uploads, right? For BitChute, YouTube, and Rumble. Follow us on Gab at Slamfire Media, and thanks for watching. Take it easy.